Now that you've made acquaintance with HTML, we are going to have a go at creating the base HTML structure of our social network project, which is what you see on the screen. The document that we'll create now is not going to look exactly like that because we need CSS to give it all the colors and the proper layout and styling. So for now, it's going to look just like the sort of stuff we've been doing so far, as it's not going to have really any kind of style. It's going to be the skeleton though of the project. So that's usually the first step. In our case, I'm kind of cheating because we already have this built. In reality, you'll most likely have something like an image or wireframes, and then you usually do the HTML structure first, and then you add CSS to it to make it look pretty. So let's get started. This whole area on the left will be a div. And then this other area will be another div. So we'll have those two areas as main divs. But before that, we actually need this to be centered in the page. And for that, you'll learn this once we learn CSS, but we need to put this whole thing in its own div. So this will be a main container called a wrapper. But for now, it's just going to be a big div. And then inside of that div, we'll have these two divs. And then inside of this area, each one of these blocks will be its own div container. And then we'll take another approach for this part. So we'll have a form, and then we'll have an unordered list. So that's how we are going to proceed. Let's begin then by adding the main div that I was mentioning, that one that's going to go centered in the page. So that one's going to go in here. And now that we already know some basics of tags, it's a good time to turn on our autocomplete, autoclose tag plugin inside of Atom. So if you're using Atom and you want to have this enabled, you have to go to Preferences, and then inside of Packages, you have to search for autoclose HTML like this, and you have to install it. It will say install, and in my case, it's already installed, so I'm going to enable it. So now if I type div, it closes automatically, which will make our work a bit faster from now on. So we have that main centered div area, and then we're going to have the left area and the right area. Inside of the left area, we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 different divs. So in this part, we'll have, that would be 1, 2, 3, and 4. This example text is actually going to be just a link. So for now, the link is not going to have anything else, just A. It's going to say, this is your username actually. So this is username. Then the next one, it says community, is the one that gives you access to all of the posts of the other members of the community. Then in this part, what we'll have is first of all, title 3 for following. So those are the people you are following. All of those people will go in this div, and then we'll have one div per person. So in this case, we're following some user Faria, some user example, and some user example 3. These are all just usernames of people you're following. Then follows you is the next one. It's actually going to have this exact same structure. So instead of following, it's going to say follows you. Doesn't matter really what text we have in here, because this is all just an example. So what do we have so far? If I refresh this page, we've got username, community, following, follows you. So as you can see, there's absolutely no styling or whatsoever in what we're doing because we haven't added CSS yet. Now let's focus on the right side. We need to begin with a form. So the first part will be a form. And that form is going to have what is called a text area. So this is another type of input that I didn't cover before. And the way this input works, it uses the text area tag. And then on the contrary of the other input fields, it actually does need to close like that. Because the other input fields, we said they were like this, for example, a text field. And then it was a self-closing tag. But when it comes to text area, this is the way you do it. So that's our text area. What else do we have? We have a button. So I'm going to add that button. Let's see. So I'm going to add that button here, and it's going to be of type submit. And the text is just going to say, where you can say whatever you want. So this is our form. That's what it's going to look like once we style it up. So what do we have after the form? We have an unordered list that will be used to represent all of the posts. So each post will be a list element that will have two divs, this main area and this area here, which shows the username. So this is the content of the post, and this is the username, and it says follow in there as well. You can follow that user. So those two divs, the first div will be this is the content of a social network post by some person, and the second div will say the author name, and then it's also going to have a link that says follow. So we refresh the page. That's what one of these will look like. But you're obviously going to have not one, but actually many. So if we press Ctrl-Shift-D, I'm not sure what the in Mac what it is, but it might be Command instead of Control. D that allows you to duplicate a line, so that we can imagine as if we had many posts. So this is it. This is it. The last thing that I wanted to show you is how you can explore a page and see what each element actually is. So for that, we're gonna open the developer tools of Google Chrome, which you can do in different ways. You can right-click and click on Inspect Element. That's one way to open that up. Another way is to go to Options and More Tools and go to Developer Tools. Or you can also press Ctrl-Shift-I in Windows or in Linux. So that opens the Developer Tools, which is this area, an area you normally don't see when you're using Google Chrome. The Elements section is the one that we're using. It shows you all of the elements of the page. So if you can expand them as well like that. So I'm trying to get this to show a bit bigger for you to see. And then see how, as you move the mouse, it shows you what that element is on the page. And then you can see what each element is. And you can open this on any single page on the web. You can also just click on one element and inspect that element, and it just shows you that one in particular, where it is in the big order of things. So this whole area is where I'm using now. Once we get into CSS, we'll use the styles area as well. And then if you want to close this area, you can just press the button in there. So to summarize, you have the final looks of your project. It could be a Photoshop image, it could be a wireframe, it could already be a coded site. And then the first thing you need to do is create a whole structure for which you'll be using containers. So there's not a single recipe of doing it, and there's definitely not a single way of doing it. So the same process that I've done in this way, you can have another professional web developer and they might do it in a different way. They might choose other elements, which is fine. There's not a unique answer to these sort of problems. So the important thing though is that once we've got all of the elements, then we need to start thinking of CSS. So up to this point, we are all good with HTML. And now we need to jump into CSS to make this actually look as pretty as what you're seeing now.